"You have to treat women like shit." This widely cited quote originates from a 1992 New York Magazine profile by Marie Brenner, who reported sources close to Trump attributing the sentiment to him. While Trump later disputed aspects of the article or the exact phrasing and intent, the quote captured a perception of his attitude, a belief that dominance, bordering on contempt, was the appropriate way to interact with women. The Access Hollywood tape detailed account. Recorded in 2005 but released publicly in October 2016, this tape provided an unvarnished look into Trump's private conversation about women with Billy Bush. Content and context. Awaiting an appearance on a soap opera, Trump, unaware his microphone was live, detailed his attempts to seduce a married woman, later identified as Nancy O'Dell, using graphic language saying, "I moved on her like a bitch. I did try and fuck her. She was married." He then noticed actress Ariane Zucker and commented on her attractiveness, saying, "I've got to use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her." Boasting about non-consensual acts. The most damaging portion involved Trump describing his approach to attractive women. "You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even wait." He then linked his fame to his ability to act with impunity, saying, "And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything." This culminated in the infamous line, "Grab 'em by the pussy. You can do anything." Implications and response. The tape was widely interpreted as Trump boasting about committing sexual assault, kissing and groping without consent, and expressing a belief that his celebrity status entitled him to do so. His public response was initially an apology for the language, dismissing it as locker room banter, a private conversation that took place many years ago. He explicitly denied ever behaving in the ways described. This defense was heavily criticized for minimizing the described actions, which align with legal definitions of sexual assault, not merely crude talk. The tape became a focal point, suggesting a deeply ingrained attitude of entitlement and objectification towards women's bodies. Allegations of sexual misconduct and assault detailed patterns. The Access Hollywood tape's release prompted numerous women to come forward publicly with allegations of sexual misconduct against Trump spanning several decades. Nature and scope of allegations. More than 24 women have accused Trump of behavior ranging from unwanted and forced kissing, groping, breasts, buttocks, genitals, and walking into pageant dressing rooms unannounced while contestants were undressed, to accusations of rape. The alleged incidents occurred in various settings: offices, airplanes, resorts, pageant events, and private residences. Notable accusers included former Apprentice contestant Summer Zervos, journalist Natasha Stoynoff, businesswoman Jessica Leeds, and many others. Trump's detailed response pattern. Trump adopted a consistent and aggressive strategy in response to nearly all allegations. Blanket denials. He categorically denied every allegation, often calling them 100% fabricated or totally false, attacking accusers' appearance. A frequent tactic was to denigrate the physical appearance of his accusers, implying they were not attractive enough for him to have assaulted. Statements like, "Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you," or "Look at her, I don't think so," were common. This tactic aimed to discredit the accuser by suggesting assault is solely motivated by desire, thereby dismissing the possibility of assault based on power or humiliation, and simultaneously insulting the accuser. Questioning motives and credibility. He routinely accused the women of seeking fame, financial gain, 10 minutes of fame, or acting as political operatives for his opponents, particularly the Clinton campaign in 2016. He attacked their timelines and questioned why they hadn't come forward sooner. Threats of legal action. Trump repeatedly threatened to sue his accusers after the election, though he did not follow through on most of these threats. He often raised the allegations at his political rallies, portraying himself as the victim of a smear campaign and encouraging his supporters to distrust the accusers and the media reporting their stories. This multi-pronged approach aimed not just to deny the specific claims, but to broadly undermine the credibility of women who accuse powerful men, casting them as unattractive, untrustworthy, and politically motivated liars. This case stands apart due to its progression through the legal system, resulting in findings of liability against Trump. Writer E. Jean Carroll alleged that Trump raped her in a dressing room at the Bergdorf Goodman department store in Manhattan in the mid-1990s. She described a seemingly playful encounter over trying on lingerie that turned violent. Trump's initial statements as president. Trump vehemently denied the accusation. His denial included several key elements consistent with his pattern. He stated he had never met Carroll, despite photographic evidence showing them together previously. He famously declared, "She's not my type," directly linking the credibility of a rape accusation to his subjective assessment of the accuser's attractiveness. He accused her of fabricating the story to sell her book and damage him politically, calling her a liar motivated by politics. Legal actions and outcomes. First lawsuit, defamation. Carroll sued Trump for defamation in November 2019, based on the statements he made denying her claim and attacking her character while he was president. This case faced delays due to legal arguments over whether Trump was protected by presidential immunity. Second lawsuit, battery and defamation. Following New York's passage of the Adult Survivors Act, which created a one-year window for survivors of sexual assault to sue regardless of the statute of limitations, Carroll filed a second lawsuit in November 2022, alleging battery for the assault itself and further defamation for statements Trump made after leaving office, where he continued to call her claims a hoax and a lie. First trial verdict, May 2023. A jury heard the second lawsuit, battery and post-presidency defamation. They found Trump liable for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll, finding the incident occurred but not meeting the specific legal definition of rape used in the jury instructions, and liable for defamation for his post-presidency statements. The jury awarded Carroll $5 million in damages. Second trial verdict, January 2024. This trial focused solely on determining the damages for the defamatory statements Trump made while president, liability having been established based on the first verdict. The jury ordered Trump to pay Carroll $83.3 million in damages, $18.3 million in compensatory damages, and $65 million in punitive damages, finding his statements were made with malice. Significance. The E. Jean Carroll cases represent a legal reckoning. Juries explicitly found Trump liable for sexual abuse and determined that his characteristic denials, including attacking Carroll's appearance and motives, were false, malicious, and defamatory, warranting substantial financial penalties. His continued verbal attacks on Carroll even during the trials were noted by the judge and likely factored into the punitive damages. Defense of men accused of misconduct. Detailed pattern. Trump frequently and vocally defended other prominent men facing accusations of sexual harassment or assault, often employing arguments that minimized the accuser's claims and highlighted the potential harm to the accused man. Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court nomination, 2018. When Dr. Christine Blasey Ford accused Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her in high school, Trump initially feigned neutrality, but quickly pivoted to aggressively defending Kavanaugh and attacking Ford's credibility. He mocked Ford's testimony at a rally, questioned gaps in her memory, and framed the situation as unfair to Kavanaugh, stating it was a very scary time for young men in America. He emphasized Kavanaugh's denials and portrayed the accusations as a Democratic political con job. Roy Moore, Alabama Senate race, 2017. Despite multiple credible accusations, including from women who were minors at the time, alleging that Moore pursued relationships with and assaulted them when he was in his 30s, Trump endorsed Moore. He stressed Moore's denials, saying he totally denies it, and attacked the credibility of the accusers and the media reporting the story, framing the allegations as politically motivated attempts to derail Moore's campaign. Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly from Fox News. Trump defended both Fox News figures amidst numerous allegations of sexual harassment that led to their respective departures from the network. He often spoke of his personal relationship with them, expressed sadness over their situations, and downplayed the severity or veracity of the claims against them, framing them as victims of circumstance or unfair attacks. Overall pattern. Trump's defenses consistently centered on highlighting the man's denial, giving significant weight to the accused's claim of innocence. He questioned accusers' motives or credibility, suggesting political motivation, fame-seeking, or unreliability. Emphasizing harm to the accused man, he focused on the potential damage to the man's reputation, career, and family. Sometimes he minimized the alleged offense, downplaying the seriousness of the alleged behavior. Invoking due process for the man, he stressed the presumption of innocence for the accused, often without acknowledging the difficulty victims face in proving allegations years later. This pattern sent a clear message of solidarity with powerful men facing accusations and skepticism towards their female accusers, reinforcing societal biases that often disadvantage victims of sexual misconduct. Psychological analysis. The combination of broad generalizations, the boasting captured on the Access Hollywood tape, the detailed pattern of denying personal allegations by attacking accusers, culminating in legal liability, and the staunch defense of other accused men lends itself to several psychological interpretations. Narcissistic traits. The evidence strongly aligns with narcissistic patterns, entitlement and grandiosity. The Access Hollywood tape, "When You're a Star," is a stark example. The "not my type" defense implies a grandiose self-perception where assault is a compliment reserved for the attractive. Defending powerful men reinforces an identification with elite status and its perceived privileges. Lack of empathy. The inability or unwillingness to acknowledge the potential pain or trauma described by accusers, his own or those of others, instead focusing on attacking their appearance or motives, demonstrates a profound lack of empathy. The focus on harm to the accused man often overshadows concern for the alleged victim. Exploitative view and objectification. The generalized view of women based on looks, and the descriptions on the tape, suggest seeing women as objects for personal gratification or status enhancement. Rage and defensiveness when challenged. The aggressive, attacking nature of his denials when accused personally fits the pattern of narcissistic rage when the idealized self-image is threatened. Misogyny and hostile sexism. Beyond individual narcissism, the patterns suggest deeply ingrained sexism. Hostility towards female agency, attacking women who come forward with accusations, especially those challenging powerful men, including himself, reflects hostility towards women claiming agency or challenging male authority and behavior. Devaluation of women's testimony. The default position of disbelief and attack towards female accusers suggests a fundamental devaluation of women's voices and experiences, particularly in relation to sexual violence. Belief in male privilege and dominance, the alleged treat 'em like shit attitude, the Access Hollywood boasting, and the defense of accused men all point towards a belief system where men, especially powerful ones, are entitled to dominate or exploit women with limited consequences. Authoritarian tendencies. The need to dominate and control narratives is evident. Attacking accusers and defending allies are ways to control the situation, punish dissent, and demand loyalty, reinforcing an authoritarian dynamic where challenges are met with aggression. Examining Donald Trump's record reveals not only broad, generalized misogynistic statements reflecting a worldview valuing women primarily for appearance or subservience, but also highly detailed and consistent patterns when confronted with allegations of sexual abuse. The Access Hollywood tape provided direct evidence of him boasting about non-consensual acts linked to his status. His responses to dozens of personal accusations involved specific, often appearance-based attacks designed to discredit the accusers, a pattern legally recognized as defamatory in the Carroll case, where he was found liable for sexual abuse. Furthermore, his vigorous defense of other men accused of misconduct underscores a tendency to align with accused power figures over female accusers. Psychologically, these behaviors strongly suggest a confluence of narcissistic traits, deeply rooted misogyny, and authoritarian impulses, painting a consistent picture of his attitudes and actions concerning women. The way an individual treats any group, especially in consistent patterns of disrespect, dismissal, or aggression, often reveals fundamental aspects of their character, temperament, and worldview that inevitably manifest in other areas of leadership and decision-making, connecting behaviors towards women to broader character traits. Lack of empathy and dehumanization. Manifestation towards women, routinely reducing women to physical appearance like saying, "Look at that face," or "she's not my type," dismissing their experiences by calling accusers liars and mocking their appearance, and using crude objectifying language such as "grab 'em by the pussy and piece of ass." This reflects an inability or unwillingness to see women as full human beings with inherent dignity and experiences worthy of respect. Broader implications for presidency. A deficit in empathy is dangerous for a leader who must understand and respond to the needs and suffering of diverse populations. For example, the administration's zero-tolerance policy leading to family separations at the border demonstrated a profound lack of empathy for the trauma inflicted on children and parents. Public comments often focused on legality or deterrence, minimizing the human cost. Another example is his initial downplaying of the COVID-19 pandemic and perceived lack of consistent public sympathy for the hundreds of thousands who died. Critics saw this as reflecting an empathy deficit, prioritizing economic or political concerns over public health suffering. Example: his response to the Charlottesville protests, stating there were very fine people on both sides, referring to white supremacists and counter-protesters, was widely criticized for failing to empathize with victims of racist violence and morally equating hate groups with those opposing them. Disregard for truth, facts, and accountability. Manifestation towards women. Vehemently denying numerous allegations of misconduct despite corroborating accounts or evidence like the Access Hollywood tape or the Carroll verdict finding him liable for sexual abuse. Attacking the credibility and motives of accusers rather than addressing the substance of claims. Creating alternative narratives like locker room talk. Broader implications for presidency. A disregard for truth undermines public trust, policy-making based on evidence, and the fundamental workings of democracy. A leader unwilling to be held accountable erodes the rule of law. Example: persistent false claims about the 2020 election being stolen despite lack of evidence and numerous court rulings directly challenged democratic processes and culminated in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. This showed a willingness to reject facts for political gain and avoid accountability for electoral loss. Example: Frequent attacks on the media as fake news and the enemy of the people aimed to discredit independent sources of information and accountability, replacing factual reporting with preferred narratives. Example: misrepresenting scientific consensus on climate change or pandemic severity undermined evidence-based policy and public health responses. Poor impulse control and volatile temperament, manifestation towards women, lashing out with highly personal, often crude insults when criticized or challenged by women, such as Megyn Kelly, Micah Brzezinski, and female reporters. Engaging in protracted, vindictive public feuds, for instance, Rosie O'Donnell. Broader implications for the presidency. Impulsivity and volatility in a president can lead to erratic decision-making, damaged diplomatic relations, instability, and an inability to manage crises effectively. For example, impulsive tweets often announced major policy shifts, like the ban on transgender military service, without apparent consultation, creating chaos within government agencies and impacting lives directly. Public insults directed at foreign leaders and traditional allies strained diplomatic relationships and undermined long-standing alliances, such as clashes with leaders at G7 summits and disparaging NATO. Frequent, rage-fueled attacks on political opponents, judges, civil servants, and even his own appointees created a climate of fear and instability, hindering effective governance. Authoritarian tendencies and intolerance of dissent, manifestation towards women included attacking and attempting to silence female critics, journalists asking tough questions, or women challenging his authority. Defending powerful men accused of misconduct suggests an alignment with established power structures against those challenging them. Broader implications for the presidency include authoritarian impulses that threaten democratic norms like free speech, checks and balances, and the peaceful transfer of power. Intolerance of dissent stifles necessary criticism and debate. Attempts to pressure the Department of Justice and FBI for investigations into political rivals, exhibiting a disregard for the independence of law enforcement. His rhetoric surrounding the 2020 election and January 6th, pressuring election officials like the Georgia Secretary of State and his own vice president to overturn the results, represented a direct challenge to democratic institutions and norms. Labeling internal government whistleblowers or dissenting officials as disloyal or part of a deep state aimed to delegitimize internal checks and oversight. It's crucial to remember the importance of upholding democratic values and ensuring the independence of our institutions. Your voice and actions matter. Stand up for transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. Together, we can protect and strengthen our democracy. Conclusion. The patterns of behavior observed in Donald Trump's interactions with women, marked by objectification, dismissal, aggression, lack of accountability, and disregard for their experiences, are not isolated character quirks. Critics argue they reflect deeper traits like a lack of empathy, a tenuous relationship with truth, poor impulse control, and authoritarian tendencies. When manifested in the presidency, these same traits arguably contributed to policies and actions that caused direct harm, like family separations, undermined democratic institutions and norms through attacks on elections, the judiciary, and the press, strained crucial international relationships, and fostered deep societal polarization. Therefore, the analysis suggests that his documented misogynistic behavior was not merely offensive rhetoric. but an indicator of fundamental aspects of his character and leadership style that poses significant challenges to the stability, norms, and well-being of the United States under his presidency. Organize, resist, educate. Our democracy depends on it.